When I started daygaming, approach anxiety seemed like the biggest problem ever I wasn't sure I was able to overcome. But now it's just a memory from a long time ago. Since then, I've approached thousands of women all around the world, slept with many of them, even had a few threesomes, and now I'm in a beautiful relationship with a girl of my dreams. And over more than 7 years of coaching Daygame, I've helped many other guys do the same. So today we're doing a Q&A on approach anxiety. I'll answer the questions sent in by guys on my mailing list. We will look at questions like, does approach anxiety ever go away completely? How to overcome spotlight effect? Do you have to do a strong front stop, or are other types of stops okay if you're too afraid to do a front stop? Is daygame harassment? So in which cases it is and in which cases it isn't? What to do if you feel weird approaching younger girls? What to do if you don't feel talkative for daygame, for example, right after work? What to do if you are overthinking before approaching and because of that, you just don't approach? How to open fast walking girls in crowded situations? How often to daygame for overcoming approach anxiety? This is a very important question, by the way. Restarting daygame after taking some time off, and how to reduce time between approaches. While we will go over all of these questions, to really overcome your fears for good, you have to understand a few big rules about approach anxiety. And because of that, very soon I'm doing a free webinar where I will teach you how to overcome approach anxiety in 1 month. When I started daygaming, it felt like I won't be able to overcome approach anxiety. I went out almost every day for more or less 2 hours for 2 weeks in a row until I gathered enough courage to do my first ever daygame approach. And after that, it didn't exactly become easier on the next day. I kept walking around for a long time between approaches, but now not only have I dealt with approach anxiety, but I've helped many guys from all over the world do the same thing, from Canada, USA, UK, Australia, Hong Kong, Switzerland, all over Europe, and many other places. And soon I'll teach you all the same things I teach my students about overcoming approach anxiety in a free webinar. Check out the link in the description to grab your free spot. And now let's get to answering the questions sent in by guys on the mailing list. Does approach anxiety ever go away completely? Yes and no. Over time, approach anxiety can become so weak that the adrenaline rush you get from actually doing the approach is much stronger than the fears holding you back, and that's when you really start to enjoy daygame. While in the beginning approach anxiety was very, very scary, over time I started enjoying overcoming it, and then I started chasing the thrill of approach anxiety. I wanted to get a bigger and bigger adrenaline rush, so I started intentionally opening in all the scary situations. I really started getting off from the adrenaline rush from that I got in these situations, for example, opening fast walking girls, opening in crowded places, indoors, etc. If I felt that crazy feeling of AA, then I knew I have to go in because I knew that adrenaline rush is going to be even stronger. Basically, I started getting off not from my daygame results, but from overcoming that approach anxiety and getting that rush on its own. But it definitely didn't start like that. Doing any approaches at all in the beginning was very, very hard. So it took me many months until I got to the point where I started enjoying the rush I get from AA. For most guys, approach anxiety gets weaker and weaker over time if they approach enough. This is the key element, if they keep approaching all the time and consistently. But for most, it doesn't really completely go away ever. It just becomes really, really weak. And then the benefits, the rush you get from the adrenaline, or just, the idea of getting laid, it becomes much stronger than an AA. So it isn't really a problem at that moment. How to overcome spotlight effect. Here we're assuming that you're able to approach on streets that aren't as crowded, but you start struggling when there are more people around. After all, that's what it means. Having a spotlight effect is thinking that other people are watching you and seeing what you're doing. This is actually easy. In the beginning, you don't even worry about opening in harder situations. But once you get to a point where you can do 5 approaches in easy situations on streets that aren't crowded, the next time you go out, you start with 5 approaches in situations that are comfortable to you, in not a crowded street, slow walking girls, all of that good stuff, yeah? And then once you've done these 5, you add 1 more in a situation that's scary. crowded street, a fast walking girl, indoors, whatever is the situation that you want to deal with. Yeah. So you start with one, and then the next time you go out again, you do 5 in an easier situation, and then add 1 or 2 in a bit more crowded situation, or whatever is difficult for you. And then over time, you do more and more of these difficult approaches, and that's essentially how you overcome your fears or spotlight effect. Let's say you start with 5 regular approaches, then 1 approach with spotlight effect. Then the next day or next week, you switch to 5 regular approaches, two with spotlight effect. Then 5 approaches, or 5 regular approaches, 3 with spotlight effect. And look, now you're already doing 8 approaches in one session. But of course, in the beginning, you have to build up to a level where you're able to do 5 approaches in these easier situations. Those are the first steps. You have to master that first before moving on to dealing with spotlight effect. Do you have to do the front stop? This is a question sent in by the guy, and he said, I don't want to do the running front stop. I always thought that it looks super weird and pushy and draws so much attention. Plus, I think she could be really startled or even angry. I would much rather do a smoother approach. Do you think a running front stop is necessary or not? Doing a proper London front stop is not necessary. There are other stops that work even better, but a proper London front stop is the first stop you have to learn. It is the most important stop in Daygame. I think a strong front stop is the foundation of good Daygame. Not just Daygame, but the way your dates are going to go and the dating and experiences you're going to be having in general. So yes, you really have to learn a strong London front stop in Daygame. That is because when people are afraid to do a strong London front stop, they are worried about what is the girl gonna think. I don't want to disturb her. I don't want to get in her way. What are people around me gonna think? They are putting the thoughts and opinions of other people above what they want to do in their life. They're making other people's opinions way too important, and this has very big consequences later in Daygame. Think of it like, I don't like the idea of frame because of how it's perceived in the manosphere and all this kind of red pill nonsense, but we still have to talk about it here. So when you're walking down the street, when a girl is walking down the street, her frame, her reality, her worldview is, I'm going somewhere, I have places to be. And when you're stopping a girl, your frame or your worldview, your kind of reality is, hey, we're going to stand here and we're going to have a nice conversation. And when you stop a girl, she has a choice. Does she want to stay in her reality? Does she want to kind of keep going wherever she's going? Or maybe she's open to giving up her reality and step into your reality, step into your frame, into, hey, we're going to stand here and have a nice conversation. If you're doing this in a very apologetic way with a weak stop and weak voice, it's highly unlikely that she's going to give up her frame, her reality, and then want to chat to you. She's just going to keep going wherever she's going. But there is something even more important. If you are so worried about just disturbing her day by stopping her, because, oh my God, what if she thinks something bad about me, What happens when maybe you invite her out on a date, you're like, hey, let's go for drinks, and she's like, well, I don't really want to go for drinks, let's go for a dinner, and she insists on going for a dinner. Well, will you then go out for a fancy dinner just because she asked you to take her for a fancy dinner? Maybe you go on a date and she is taking things really slowly and she's telling you, oh, well, I don't usually do this. I sleep with guys only when we're in a relationship or, after 5 dates or whatever. While in most cases, she bangs some other dude on a first date she goes out with if she really likes the dude. How are you going to react in all of these situations? Maybe she, wants to take things really slow. And, you go for the kiss or you try to escalate. She doesn't go for it. And now you're all afraid. You're really afraid. Oh my God, I did something she didn't like. Now for like 3 dates, I'm not going to escalate. I'm going to take this really slow because she's that type of a girl. Or will you pause a little bit, build a bit more comfort and try again a little later in a calibrated way? And of course, understanding when you have to stop. If she's going to keep stopping you multiple times, then we'll give up, chill out, meet her another time. That's totally fine. But how are you going to react in all of these situations? Will you always be accommodating all of her behaviors, all of her wants? That's why I think a strong front stop is so important. It teaches you the idea that you assert your frame, you assert your worldview, and then other people can choose. Do they want to step into your reality, step into your frame, or do they want to stay with their frame and do whatever they're doing? Because when you do a weak stop or when you're worried about these things, you have already lost the frame, you have lost the battle because you're so worried about what is everyone else gonna think. Because of this, when I work with someone in field, the first days, the only stop we do is a strong London front stop. Yes, later we work on other stops, but in the beginning, that's the only one we use. And then very quickly, the students realize that, oh my God, girls react better to stronger stops. No one around you cares about you doing strong stops, and everything else in Daygame sets is going better once you started with a strong stop. So yes, you have to use a good London front stop. Is Daygame harassment? So a guy sent in a question saying, do you think Daygame approaches are okay in the UK, or would indirectly be better due to some girls seeing approaches as harassment? It depends. So you have to ask yourself, are you a cool guy who's fixed most of the things in his life, takes good care of his style and grooming, has decent day game skills, approaches girls he genuinely likes with good intentions, and understands when to leave the girl alone? Or are you, on the other hand, maybe a dude who has nothing going for him in his life, looks like shit with bad day game skills, is spam approaching everything that moves in the same location where everyone else is day gaming, walks with a girl when the girl doesn't stop, and keeps doing the same things even though you've been getting negative reactions for at least 6 months? If you're the first guy, congratulations, Daygame isn't a harassment, you're doing it the right way and everything is fine, but you already know that. If you're the second guy, then yes, in my eyes, Daygame can be a harassment, and it's visible in a few cities in Europe already. So simply ask yourself, would I want my sister or daughter dating someone like me, or just be approached by someone like me and then act accordingly? Is it normal to approach younger girls? A guy sent in a question asking, I have a new insecurity about approaching. I'm aware that I'm getting older, 38, and sometimes feel an insecurity about approaching girls where there's a big age gap, as if she could reject me based on that. How would you deal with this insecurity objection? Although I do look much younger. This depends on the location. There are places in the world where age gap is a bit of a problem, and there are many places where no one cares. But regardless of the place, this isn't something you should worry if you're younger than, 45, maybe 40 in some more conservative locations. If your location is sort of 50-50 on these things, you can skip the really young girls, like 18, 19, 20, something like that, just out of high school, just started university, and just skip those if you prefer. If you're in a place where there is a lot of stigma around the age gap in dating, you can still approach and date girls from mid-20s and up. Guys in their 40s usually do very well with girls in their late 20s, even in these a bit more conservative, if that's the right word, places. But you have to ask yourself, do I look like a creepy older guy, or do I look like the older guy younger women sometimes fantasize about? Sooner or later, most girls ask themselves, hey, I wonder how would it be to be with an older guy? And if you're the right type of a guy, if you're taking good care of your physique, your style, and your grooming, you could be that guy. When talking about this, it's important to understand that Daygame is not a way to cheat the sexual marketplace. Daygame is simply a way to deliver your sexual market value, what you are offering, and get a fair shot in dating. What to do when you don't feel talkative for Daygame? Sometimes when you finish your work day and you're going out for Daygame, maybe you work an office job, you're a very serious dude, and you hit the streets and you haven't talked to people, all day, or it's always been about, numbers and Excel and all of that stuff. Like, how the hell do you switch to a more social mood? How do you get into that flow state? Well, let's talk about state shifting. Here I'm going to give you a list of a bunch of things that have worked for me, my wings, and my students. Of course, take the ones that make sense to you and, just experiment with what works for you. Don't do all of them. First, upbeat music really helped me, preferably something a little bit silly. That was really, really helpful. So I would put it on when I go out. That would kind of pump me up a little bit and put me in a mood to start approaching. And I would usually listen to the same stuff every time I went out for as long as it worked. After a while, I did have to change, kind of switch to a new album or something like that. So that's one thing you can do. I haven't experimented with this, but for other people, stand-up comedy works really good. They just watch like a few short clips on YouTube. That puts them in a kind of sillier, more kind of positive mood, and then they're able to go out and approach. A bunch of people have told me that watching a good infield before heading out helps them really, really well, but only do that if you have access to really good infields, because everything on YouTube is complete crap. This is something I used to do a lot, calling a friend or wing when you're going out. I used to annoy my wings with my fucking phone calls with like a little chat every other day, but that really helped me gonna improve my vibe and then get out there and start approaching. The next thing is something I learned from a book by Tim Ferriss. Looking people in the eyes and waiting for them to break the eye contact. So let's say you're walking down the street and you see someone coming towards you. Just look into their eyes and wait for them to break the eye contact. It's going to be a little weird in the beginning, but you'll see that most people break the eye contact, so it's not really a problem. It just makes you do something that's slightly uncomfortable. It pushes you kind of in that out of your zone of comfort. Used to be very helpful for me. If someone comes up to you like, what the fuck are you looking at, dude? Just say, oh, sorry, dude, you reminded me of someone I went to college with. That's it. So I've never had to do this, but Tim Ferriss suggested this as a solution when someone reacts weird. Next, something I used to do a lot is I would go before my day game session, I would go get a cup of coffee and I would just chat with the barista or wherever you go, use the name of the barista. She hands you your coffee, you see the name tag, thank you, Linda. That's it. Yeah. Again, using that name, a bit uncomfortable, a bit weird because people don't really do that. Have a chat with her. Yeah, they have to chat with you. Yeah, that's kind of their job to be friendly with you. So do that, have a little chat and then again, head out and start your day game session. If you can't do an approach, if you can't even do a hit and run, you can start by asking directions once or twice. Don't ask directions for the nearest coffee shop. That's, I think, kind of cliche. Just, ask, hey, do you know where the closest ATM is? Do that with hot girls, once or twice, no need for more than that. And then again, just jump into your approaches. And the last thing, and this is an important one, lower your bar, because so often when I coach students in field, I hear them in the beginning of a session, I point out the girl and they're like, she's not hot enough. Oh, she's not my type. She's this, she's that, she's too this, too that. Yeah. But then by the end of the session, once they warmed up, I see them open girls who look worse than the ones they didn't open in the beginning of a session. So if in the beginning of a session you think this girl isn't hot enough, that girl isn't hot enough, it's not that you don't like her, it's your approach anxiety talking. So lower the bar. Yeah, in the beginning of a session, you're overcoming approach anxiety. You're not looking for your future wife. What to do if you're overthinking before day game approaches? A guy asked about these situations where you see a girl and then you don't open instantly, and by the time you can realize, oh shit, I haven't opened, I have to open, like they're already thinking about so many things and it feels kind of creepy. It's a bit too much out of their comfort zone. They can't open anymore because too much time has passed. Maybe they've been walking behind a girl for a minute, 2 minutes, 5 minutes, maybe she looked back or whatever else happened. So what do you do in these situations? When you start walking behind a girl, two things can happen. Number one, she can walk into a store, she can pick up a phone call, or she can meet someone. Or the second thing, and this is much more likely and much worse, you talk yourself out of approaching. There is no way around this. You just have to open very fast. If you haven't opened her within, I would say 30 seconds max, but even that is way too much, then don't walk behind her. Just look for another girl. The longer you walk, the harder it becomes because you start to think about all these scenarios. What if she says this? What if she says that? But there is a quick solution to that. Instead of trying to come up with a great opener, with a great way to start a conversation with this particular girl, start each conversation with the same copy-paste opener. That way, you don't have to think about what are you going to say. You already know that, hey, I have this opening line. I've used it 50 times before. It works good. Let me just do that. It just takes this decision out of the picture, and you can instead focus on approach itself instead of overthinking about all the scenarios that could happen. How to open fast-walking girls in crowded situations. This is very similar to the question about how to overcome spotlight effect. When you have spotlight effect, or when you're afraid to open faster-walking girls who are using their phone when they have their headphones in, don't try to do these things in the beginning. First, build up to being able to do 5 regular approaches. 5 approaches with girls who are, walking in a regular pace in a place that's not so busy. They're not with their headphones, not on their phones. It's just simple approaches. Build up to doing 5 of these, and when you're able to do that, the next time you go out, start with 5 regular approaches, and then say, okay, now I'm going to do one that I'm scared of. For example, a fast walking girl, and then you do that, and then maybe you do that for the next day and for the day after that. But then later, once you're comfortable with that, you build up again. You do 5 regular approaches, two approaches in situations where you're scared. Then, 5 regular, three situations when you're scared. And again, you're at 8 approaches in one session, which is getting to some pretty decent volume. This is why it's so important to do longer day game sessions, because it usually takes guys, 3, 4, 5-ish approaches to really warm up and be confident and start running their best day game sets. Essentially, I would say that the first 5 approaches you do are you're working on approach anxiety, you're kind of just warming up, and you really start working on your day game skills after you're warmed up for the rest of the approaches. That's why I think it's so important to do around 10 approaches each time. Well, maybe not each time, but aim to do 10 approaches when you go out. How often to day game if your main challenge is approach anxiety? 1 approach a day keeps approach anxiety away. So ideally, every day you should be doing at least 1 approach, preferably more. And the more days you skip between doing approaches, the more the AA will come back and the harder it will become. If you skip 1 day, you will see that approach anxiety is a little worse. If you skip 2, you will see that it gets exponentially worse. If you skip 3 days in a row, you will see that you are in a really bad spot in terms of AA. Over time, you can of course take more and more days off. I can easily take, 6 months off and then be fully back on a horse in just a few days. But in the beginning, for the first months, I couldn't skip more than 1 or 2 days, or the AA would be really bad. So if you have crazy AA, start by going out more frequent. So the frequency, how often you go out, that's the first most important part. Once you are going out often enough, you can increase the volume. You can start going out, you can start doing more approaches per session. So that's a secondary thing. And only when you have solved frequency and volume, you should start even thinking about the quality of girls and the quality of approaches you're actually doing. How to restart day gaming when you've taken some time off. I'm working with a guy who's getting back into a day game after a long break, which he took because he was in a relationship, and his approach anxiety right now is worse than when he first started day gaming. In the beginning, he was going out with the sole purpose of day gaming, but couldn't do a single approach. Sometimes guys do the first approaches and they're back on the horse pretty fast and everything is working, but there are 2 other scenarios that can happen. First, your ego could be getting in the way. Some guys, especially if they used to do really good in day game, really struggle getting back into day game after a break because they're afraid to fail. What if they aren't good at day game anymore? What if they get blowouts? What if the girls don't like them anymore? Their past successes inflated their ego, and now they feel like cool, successful seducers. Getting rejected would mean the reality smacking them into their face, showing that their game isn't what it used to be, because in most cases, it isn't. Leave your past results in the past. You took a break. It's likely that you lost a big part of the things you knew about dating. You're a beginner again. Start from where you are. Work on overcoming approach anxiety, and when you do, it's likely that you'll get back on a horse pretty fast, but don't rush it. Start by doing the first approaches, but leave the ego at home. And the second thing that could have happened is that you're older now and things have changed. This kind of continues the first point. Maybe you did really good day gaming in your 20s or your early 30s, but now you are older. Do girls like older guys? Do you still look good enough? Or are you being a little creepy opening younger girls? Coming back after a day game break can come with its insecurities, but they're very similar to the beliefs you had when you started day gaming. For example, you're probably thinking, she's walking too fast, she's too hot, she's not hot enough, what are people around me gonna think, etc. Now you simply have different beliefs, but it's the same idea. It's your brain talking you out of approaching. Nothing has changed, so treat these things the same way you treated these beliefs when you first started day gaming, and just start with basics, start with doing one approach and then slowly build up from where you are. How to reduce time between approaches? Walking around for 40 minutes between approaches means you're overthinking it. Simplify your day game. You're not looking for your future wife. You're not even trying to get laid. You're just working on your approach anxiety. So start with that. So don't look for the ideal girl in the ideal situation. Lower the bar. Open average looking girls. If you're not able to do that, you're not warmed up. Start by maybe even asking a few hot girls for directions. Or do a few hit and runs, meaning you stop a girl, you give her a compliment, and you wish her a nice day. You don't continue the conversation. Even if she says, "Oh my God, dude, this is so amazing. Can I give you a blowjob right now and right here?" You say, "Have a nice day," and leave. Because otherwise you'll be thinking about, hey, what if she says that? What can I respond then? What if she says this? What if I can do that? And you'll be overthinking. So instead, just focus on delivering a quick compliment, a quick hit and run to get kind of your grooves going, to warm up, and then you can transition into doing regular approaches. After you have warmed up, perfect, start a stopwatch and don't spend more than 5 minutes between approaches. And remember, lower the bar. You're not looking for the one. Yeah, you're first focusing on quantity and only then on quality. At least while you're working on overcoming approach anxiety. I'm not telling you to open fatties. It's not that she's not hot enough or too hot. There are many things your brain is gonna tell you. She's walking too fast. She looks like she's in a relationship. She looks angry. I already opened her before. This one, by the way, was mine. Yeah, because I had this belief that I had done a lot of approaches. So I was always thinking, oh, I've seen her. I've opened her before. I opened that one before. And then I was in Serbia and I saw this girl that I was sure I had opened before. But then I woke up middle of the night realizing, wait, she reminded me of a girl I opened in Poland. Then I realized, oh damn, my brain has been playing a lot of tricks on me. So what I did, each time I thought I had opened her before, I still did an approach to test whether it's actually true or is my brain playing tricks on me. And I had only a few cases where I reopened a girl in such situations. I regularly see students saying she's not hot enough in the beginning of a session, but after they warmed up towards the end of the session, they open girls who are worse looking than the girls who weren't hot enough in the beginning of a session. So if you're spending a lot of time between approaches, don't look for the ideal girl, lower the bar. If you have to warm up, start with simple things. First, focus on how many approaches you're doing. Yeah, that's the important thing. And then once you're doing enough approaches, you can say she's not hot enough or whatever, and then can open just hotter girls. Very soon, I'm doing a free webinar where I will teach you how to overcome approach anxiety in 1 month. When I first started day gaming, it felt like I won't be able to overcome approach anxiety. I went out almost every day for around 2 hours for 2 weeks in a row until I gathered enough courage to approach a random girl for the first time. And even after that, it was still challenging. I kept walking around for a long time between approaches. But now, more than 10 years later, I've talked to thousands of girls all around the world, have slept with many of them, even had a few threesomes, and now I'm in a beautiful relationship with the girl of my dreams. And I've helped guys from all over the world, UK, USA, Canada, I don't know, Australia, Hong Kong, Israel, Switzerland, all over EU, etc. do the same thing. And soon I'll do a free webinar where I will teach you the best techniques to overcome your approach anxiety. You can find all the details and grab a spot by clicking the link in description.